Good evening, YouTube. Today we're going to talk springs, an often overlooked aspect of markers. And there's a reason for it today, because my brand new baby Pride and Joy Frosty, my CQ, went into an Autofire state last night when I was testing it in the little shooting range. So the background to this is, well, here, I'll cut to the video. I'll show you. Some of you may or may not have experienced this before, and the main reason for this happening is because of, in this particular case, the bypass and the orifice that's inside here, inside the air chamber, is I also have removed. This is an undrilled, unmodified regulator, so I just removed the orifice. And it's something that seems to rear its head quite often. And it has more to do with the spring than anything else. Easy fix is put your orifice back in and away you go. But you guys been around here long enough watching my videos, you know that's just not gonna do. The orifice adds probably about 10 FPS or so, depending on your bottle pressure and such. But the main reason I don't run it is because I do plan on modifying this regulator to expand the usable air chamber. So installing the orifice back in just isn't gonna cut it for me. And a lot of you guys out there, I mean, 40, 45 joules, the M17 can do no problem, and it probably won't give you any grief, and you don't even have to do the bypass or any of this stuff that I do. I do most of it to alleviate some hiccups that have come along the way. I mean, remember, these things were designed for paintball. So any case, I'll show the video. And there you have it. So that Autofire state can happen for a number of reasons, and it's more particular to the M17. The FSC, VKS don't really have that. Well, they don't have that issue. I've never experienced it unless you've been to a firing pin or something like that, and then you kind of get that fully auto bolt cycling, and it's a similar reason. The main one in an M17 is this an M17 bolt spring here. It gets weak. With the bypass and all that extra air I'm sending through, the bolt fires, but there is not enough spring tension in the way a blow forward marker works. It's blowing forward against the spring pressure like that. And when it gets far enough, the pin inside here breaks the seal in the end here, the O-ring, and releases the air from the air chamber, sends it out the bolt. But when the air pressure is too great and the spring is too weak, this bolt goes forward and not enough pressure or tension on the spring to send it all the way back to plug for that firing pin inside there, to plug that hole and allow the sear to catch. What's happening is it gets to an almost state and the air is pushing so hard back because it's bypassed that the bolt goes forward again and then back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until the air depletes enough that it will reset. So I thought I had this licked. I've been running this 2mm. This is a little AliExpress spring, and it does work. The issue is the longevity of this doesn't appear to be good enough. I probably have 200 shots on this, and it's gone into this Autofire state. So I'm going to experiment, and I already started the experimentation, and unfortunately, because of the nature of me tearing markers open and running out there and firing it and doing that, I'm probably not going to show. I got a couple of clips that I might sneak in, but I have a variety of springs here. So this particular one is an FSC spring, a standard FSC spring. This particular one here is a VKS spring, and we're just gonna omit that one. Well, I can show you in a sec. That is a TIPX spring. So these are all your most common markers here. Well, let's take that one out too, because that's the AliExpress spring. And just have a look at them. Hopefully you can see that good there. TIPX being the shortest, VKS shortest, I should say. Okay, and this is what I'm getting at with this whole thing. So look at them here on the table. They all appear to be a certain length. And although length is important, and I'll get to that in a little bit regarding the M17, the most important thing is the compression length. So compression length is when I compress the spring all the way, and this is going to be really quick and dirty measurements, guys, but this is how I do it. That compressed length determines how far your bolt travels until it locks up. It compresses the spring fully, it releases the air, and then it goes back into its ready state. Now, why that's important is because if this bolt doesn't travel, these paintball companies, they've done a really good job designing these engines for their markers, and I'm of the opinion that the optimum distance is what they've set. And so based on their spring that comes in the marker, when this bolt is fully extended and this spring is fully compressed, your firing pin is open for a predetermined amount of time and allows a certain amount of air through. Now, this is where those short pins come from, but we're not going to get into that here. So you can imagine if the pin was shorter, it's going to open sooner, more air is going to come out. But there's another part to it that is overlooked. The M17 and the FSC, not so much the TIPX just because of the design of the breech, but if the bolt doesn't travel far enough forward, for instance, in the M17, the FSC, this barrel tip actually makes quite the entrance into your barrel. So if it doesn't travel far enough forward, it might release that air too soon, and it can actually go down your mag well instead of into the barrel because it's falling short of the mag well. I hope this is making sense. So you want the bolt to travel, at least in my opinion, the minimum what the factory designed. If you're traveling short of that, you're not getting optimum efficiency. Now there's an argument that traveling a little bit further may increase efficiency, which kind of goes in hand with the VKS and the standard FSC spring. But without testing, I can't say for sure. In my early tests here, I'm gonna just explain quickly. So this spring, the M17 standard spring, didn't really work with the bypass. Well, it did, and then it got tired. So I went to my 2mm. This worked, then it got tired. So last night I just did a Hail Mary. I took 2 VKS springs and I stacked them on top of each other, like this. And to my surprise, the thing worked. It worked without issue, except I lost 25 FPS. And the reason for that is 2 of these VKS springs stacked on top of each other. The compressed length of these is a lot longer than the compressed length of the M17 spring. So this bolt was short of being in its optimum location. So it was opening this much and closing, opening this much and closing, as opposed to with the factory M17 spring, it would open this much, release a whole bunch more air, and then go to a reset. And I'm just gonna show you quickly. Again, these are just to give you an idea, because this applies to a lot of other markers. Bolt springs do play an important part. And it may help you understand the reasoning for short pins as well. So this is standard M17 spring compressed. I know it's gonna be in millimeters, guys. Sorry, but it'll all translate out in the end. This compressed M17 spring is, beat it kitty, you knew that was coming, 27 to 28 millimeters compressed. So ideally, whatever spring you choose to replace this, you want a minimum compression or a maximum compression. Minimum, maximum. Hey, get out of here. Go, beat it. Come on. You want a minimum compression of 27 to 28 millimeters. Now, there is some variables there, and I've tested, and that's a whole different story here, but minimum 27 to 28 would be ideal. So the alley spring, even though its starting length is a lot shorter, you just gotta be careful here, guys, when I compress these, they don't go flying everywhere. I'm doing my best to keep them vertical. Hey! Go, get out of here. She's knocking over my boxes. This AliExpress spring is, would you look at that? 27, 28 millimeters compressed. But the issue with this is, it's just Chinese spring steel. Now, I've had varying degrees of success with these. In the end, they always seem to fail, and springs are gonna fail. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it, but you can see this also plays a part, the overall length and how much tension it's pressing back on this. So there is a predetermined distance inside for the sear here, and even though this spring, it appears to have all the right ingredients, and it does work, something molecular has changed inside, and it's just not resetting the bolt. So done, out the window. I'm going with that. Remember that 27, 28 millimeters compressed. I tried a VKS spring yesterday, 2 of them stacked on top of each other, and I lost 25 FPS, and this is why. Because the VKS spring, compressed, is about 18 mils. Now, times 2, that's 36 millimeters compared to 27, so it's about 9 millimeters longer when I have 2 of these stacked together. So this bolt definitely wasn't traveling far enough. This pin was only opening for a limited amount of time, not within factory specs. So although it reset and it fired without issue, and I was like, wow, this is working. When I put the chrono on it, I lost 25. I may have to go back to that, but at this point it's unacceptable. Oh, and also I'll do a FSC spring just to show you. FSC spring, if I remember correctly, is a touch longer compressed than a VKS spring. Yeah. We are 19, 20-ish. They are, yeah, that's about what I remember. So the VKS spring compress is what I think was a millimeter shorter. So we'll call it 19 and 18. And again, it's pretty crude measurements, but I've measured a lot of these and that number's always kind of been what it's been to. So stacking 2 of these FSC springs isn't going to help me either. Bring in the TIPX spring. It has a compressed length of about 5 or 6 millimeters. We'll call it 6. We'll call this 20, 19, 20. This is one of the combinations that I haven't tried yet because I ran out of time yesterday. But I'm going to post this before I try it anyways, just to get it out there. Standard M17 spring. Now do you understand? There is so much. The compressed length this is actually shorter. These 2 stack springs is shorter compression. That may or may not affect or may not even have the desired effect that I want that I'm looking for, but just based on looking at this is gonna have more pushback, more rebound, sorry, pushback. Pushback's something that, never mind. It's gonna have more rebound against this bolt to help seat it back on the sear, or at least get that firing pin back over and make a seal and reset this. Comparatively to this, but this longer one is actually gonna have a millimeter more compressed or shorter compression. So, I mean, looks can be deceiving. I mean, the coils on this you can see are much tighter than on these 2 springs combined. So, there you have it. That's my little take on bolt springs. I have a lot of TIPX springs, and a lot of VKS springs, and not a lot of M17 springs. Otherwise, I'd throw a brand new one of these in, but all the ones I got, I didn't throw away, and they're unfortunately all the sort of the tired ones that I've had. So I will report back with what I find. Something else to keep in mind here too is you've heard the talk of bumpers on the M17 chamber, E-core. Now, you can see here I only got 2. The reason I went to 2 was because if this works, I want it to be something where you guys can, instead of trying to source these, buying a whole heat core rebuild kit just to get 2 of these, or alternately, I mean, you can put steel washers or what have you on there, or FSC bumpers also fit. Pardon me. But ultimately, this is how it'd come out of the box with just 2 bumpers. So I want to find a solution to the Autofire for those of you that choose to bypass and remove your orifice. Remember, if you're getting Autofire, put that little brass orifice back in there. That'll 9 times out of 10 solve your problem. So bumpers, sorry, I got off track there. The talk of adding bumpers. Now, when you add bumpers here, you're actually adding, sorry, bolt's gotta go on there first. So this bolt, where it resets, is based on how many bumpers, or yeah, we'll just say that, based on how many bumpers you have here. So the more bumpers you have, the further back it's going to be, or further forward it's going to be. Now, there is a point when you can put too many bumpers on and it's not going to catch the sear, because the sear is, you've already passed it here. So bumpers add preload, and that's why we add bumpers with factory springs and such, because so if this is your ready state of your bolt, now imagine I add a couple of bumpers here. You can see now the bolt, see there's much more spring tension on it, and more, and you kind of get the idea there. So bumpers do help. And in this case, they didn't. I went up to 6 on the CQ last night and it still failed it went into the Autofire state. So, while I'm here, I may as well mention the other reason for Autofire. Air leaks. An air leak can 100% cause on an Autofire state. And the reason for that is this bolt requires a certain amount of pressure to send it forward in a manner that it compresses the spring enough that it can reset. But if there's an air leak and say it only pushes this bolt forward just a like that, it doesn't compress this spring enough to send your bolt back. So air leaks is normally what I will check first. And as you know, when you start adding lines, you do add failure points. But I went through this last night before I got all bent about my spring. No pun intended. And I don't have any air leaks. So, but keep that in mind. If you're getting Autofire and your bypass, put your orifice back in first. That'll get you shooting. But if you are dead set on running it deleted, like I do, check for leaks. And last but not least will be your spring. And hopefully I can report back with a solution using some more commonly available off-the-shelf springs that are of known better quality than the alley spring. And like I said, this spring does what it's supposed to. It just doesn't live long enough. And that's the issue I'm having. And going back to failures, you just can't have them happen when you need it most. So guys, hope that helps you. And keep an eye out for the answer to all your problems.